It's a Guy Jeans podcast.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. If you have any questions about the podcast or have any ideas for me, please email me at guyjeanspodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, please write a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. Oh, and make sure to follow, like, and subscribe the Guy Jeans Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. My sound on the people's sound. My sound on the heavyweight sound. I started this podcast to talk to interesting and motivating people living and manifesting their passions and ambitions into reality. I've always said, if you're passionate and love what you do, you will be successful. For more than 2 decades, Matt Munoz has covered the California entertainment scene from the newsroom to the radio podcast studio to the frontman on stage. Launching his career as a professional musician and bandleader for popular Latin ska reggae band Mento Buru, Matt has since become a trusted community voice in the California music scene and multimedia journalism. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Matt Munoz. Matt, how you doing?
I'm very good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. And right off the bat, I'm going to ask you a question. What's the best Mexican food in Bakersfield?
The best place? Oh, man, you know what? There is a new place over on the east side. Well, it's semi-new. It's called El Asadero Grill. And it's right there, like, I would say, it's at the gateway to the hood, man.
Okay.
And it is so good. It's like Tijuana style, the whole schmear, man. It's down the street from my place. I'm in East Bakersfield, but I'm in the historic East Bakersfield before it starts getting a little bit rougher and rougher. But that's where you find all the best food.
Oh, okay. Awesome, man. Dude, I got to say that you are probably the mayor of the Bakersfield music scene. Am I correct on that?
Oh, my God. You know what? I think people just say that because, well, I like being involved. Yeah. And so, for the past, almost, over 3 decades, myself and the band, and even when the band is, when we're not gigging as much, I continued to stay involved in some form or another, whether I was, operating as a journalist, working as a journalist, or podcasting, or just being out there to support everybody and kind of be a mentor. Kind of gone through these different phases in my life, but I'm always, you got to be out there, man. If you're gonna be part of your community, you just have to show your face and you have to be involved. So that's probably where that comes from. And, would I ever run for mayor? No way. Hell no.
For the music scene, absolutely.
Hey, that's cool if they want to say that, as long as it has positive connotations, because, I'm as busy and I love and appreciate and respect our music scene as much as anybody else does. I hope everybody does.
Well, the knowledge you have too. I've listened to a few of your podcasts for sure. I'm a fan of your podcast. I'm a fan of your music, and just the knowledge that you have of just musicians for one, but also albums. You can just recall an album. Oh yeah, I got that album, man. This song, just like right off the bat is unbelievable. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, that's music has always been such a big part of my life, whether, even before I started playing, I've said this a lot when people ask you for a bio, and I said, well, if you're growing up, in the years that I was, in the late 70s into the 80s when I was a teenager, it was the 80s. It was right before MTV. So you really had to, growing up in McFarland, the town was so small that, once I just got that little taste of the things that I was drawn to, which was music and kind of like popular culture, all that kind of sugary stuff you like as a teenager, as a kid. Yeah. But, you either click with it or you don't. And music has always been something that just really clicked with me. And so it was never a better time to be like a young music geek than the 80s. Because you were coming into another amazing, groundbreaking era of music where everything was free and everything was just kind of like out there and spacey. You had punk and you had, you had the post 70s kind of big rock, arena rock era. And then it was like punk, and then you had ska, and then we're discovering reggae over here in the States and all that stuff. And so, the sky was the limit for you to just kind of, daydream all day about what was possible.
You grew up in McFarland, and from what I understand, you started playing saxophone as a little kid, which you play saxophone now in your band Mento Buru. Yeah. And so how did you get into, well, let me go to this. Do you remember how me and you and I met?
Let me see. The first time, oh yeah, you know what? I can actually remember a lot. My long-term memory is really, really great.
Awesome.
Now, when Mento Buru was first going to, I don't know how, every time I look back to when we used to travel to the coast a lot,
yeah,
I can never remember, I can only remember certain kind of original connections that we made that kind of helped us to get over there. So the first place we had gone was to Slow Brewery. Yeah. And when they used to do the farmers market, which they still do. Mm-hmm. But, one of our first out of town gigs was going to Slow Brewery, and little did we know, this is what was possible, Yeah. I mean, there was just it's a big college town, and that kind of opened our eyes to what was possible for what the type of music that we were doing. And so when we went to Slow, it's just well, if we're traveling back, we go, okay, so we see if we can make some connections in Santa Barbara. But we were always thinking about, well, what about on the way back home? Mm-hmm. And so Ventura was well, that's the spot. And I don't know who connected us with Dominka over at Bombay Bar and Grill. Yeah, right. But that was, she was the one. And gosh, I don't even know. Is she still around?
She's still around, yeah, but she doesn't have that club anymore. She sold it.
Yeah, okay. So the first time when we started to go down there and work with Dominka, and she would be over there to greet us, and they always took really good care of us. And we had a lot of fun in those Sunday afternoon gigs that would happen at the Bombay Bar and Grill right up in the front. And then she had told us about you guys, about Lion Eyes, Lion Eyes. So, and then I don't know at what point we met, but I did go to see you guys, and I do remember seeing you in that back room kind of area, the big area, because you guys were I mean, you're a Ventura band, man. You have a big draw. It was packed in there. And I remember you coming out, and you had the guitar, and I was just man, this is the place to be, man. Man, I wish we lived around here, because these people are really into this type of music. Yeah. And the band's great, and there was never a shortage of talent for that area. And I think, back then it was just a kind of a snail mail thing, because I had your CD. I was trying to look for it because I've had so many CDs, and I've had to kind of get rid of a lot of my collection. But I did have the Lion Eyes CD, and I remember it had that first song.
Oh my God!
Full Pressure. Yeah,
dude, I can't believe that
I listened to everybody.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Your recall, it blows my mind. That's Sweet Summer. I could see you. I could visualize you the time that I went to go see you guys. You were playing the guitar, and you were singing a song, and it was like a ska tune. Super Pressure. Yeah, Pressure. Yep. Yeah. See, remember everything. Oh my God.
And that was and later on it was Papanada. You did Papanada. So right. I remember everything, bro.
Oh my God. I can't believe that. That's incredible, man. That's what I'm talking about. That recall is crazy.
It was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, thank you, man.
What a great time to go over there and be around all the bands. I mean, remember Crucial DBC?
Of course. The ska bone plays in my band now, man. The trombone player.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dude, okay, this is funny because when Crucial DBC used to come to Bakersfield, and this was even before Mento was formed, I used to go see them at some small clubs here in town. And when they came out with their CD, What's Next, I had them all sign it. And we ended up, when Mento finally formed, we played a reggae fest together. And I remember they used to close some of their shows with Christine Keeler, the Skylights tune. And we ended up learning that. I remember we opened our set with that song, and then we may have had him come out to play with us, but it was really fast forward to now, and I found my CD, and it has all their autographs, and I was like, Stan, man,
wow.
I can't believe like you're the same guy, man. Like I used to go see you guys play all the freaking time. Norman, who ended up, and remember when he used to go play with when Crucial DBC kind of dissolved, he went and played with Dave Wakeling for a while.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'd run into everybody, all these different places, man. You know.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that's crazy, man. So we met through that. I think. Did you play Nickelbees with us ever? Like with Papanata? Do you remember playing there? I think you guys.
We might have done a show that we did play Nickelbees though.
Yeah.
The only time I remember really clearly was we played with Hepcat.
Oh, okay.
Hepcat show.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I probably went to that show then and saw you guys.
Yeah,
there.
those cool. Is that place still around?
No, it's not. Yeah, the Ventura music scene has kind of changed a little bit. I mean, there's still lots of places to play, and it's very well received. And we've been playing my band Stonefly has been playing a club there called Tony's Pizzeria, which is right on the right there by Surfers Point. It's awesome, man. Super fun, super fun place to play.
Yeah.
So
for you guys to be over there in that area, I'm sorry, for you guys to be over there in that area with, you know, the whole vibe of like, you know, being able to have a reggae, you know, reggae kind of a tropical Caribbean, you know, ska alternative band in that area is just like, man, was it easy? Let me just turn the mic on you for a second. Was it easy for you guys to kind of take off? Because, I mean, man, we're here in Bakersfield, bro.
Yeah.
It's like we're trying to, like, at the time when we got the band together, you know, we were only aware of what was going on here, and this was pre-internet time. So, you know, the internet was barely coming out, and we didn't really have a lot of access to that. So the only time we ever would see it is we got like a copy of the LA Weekly or a New Times or something like that was on the coast. But those worlds that existed apart from us, we were trying to build a scene here. And it wasn't until we traveled to Ventura Slow and Santa Barbara where we saw, Jesus, man, this is like the mecca for the type of music that we're playing. And we're not breaking through in our hometown fast enough. While we would go to Toast Tavern, we would go to Bombay and all those places, and the crowd was just built in, ready to freaking skank, man.
That's for sure.
We're just like, holy shit, we want to move. We were going over there all the time because it was like, man, you know, Bakersfield was just like, okay, we've already seen you guys, but we could go to end of the coast every other week, and it was like the first time we'd ever been there.
Wow, so cool, man.
Yeah. So let's get back to what you were asking.
Yeah, well, I mean, to answer your question, for us to break into the scene, you know, we kind of it was lionized. You know, it was just we were just playing in garages, and then we started playing some parties, and then we started playing this one club called Charlie's. I don't know if you ever got to play Charlie's right by the pier, the Ventura Pier. But we sucked, man. But we just brought a crowd, you know, and the owner's like, oh man, you guys could play here, you know, once or twice a week if you want. So we basically learned our instruments, learned how to perform, learned everything in this little tiny club, and created this scene, and it was just a blast. And then we just kind of kept progressing and playing more shows and stuff, and kind of grew it. You know,
every band doesn't come out sounding the best. Yeah. I mean, we sucked. Every band has to suck.
You just got to go play and suck.
Friends, you know, it's like, but your friends are there to support you. Yeah, like you said, it was like as long as the clubs are like, hey, just bring some people in here.
Yeah.
Don't break anything.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about your band, of course, as well. But you have a podcast called Bakotunes Podcast, and you have some amazing guests on there. And how long have you been doing that? How long has that podcast been going?
Well, the original podcast was, I started it when podcasting was a super new thing. So when I started working at the Bakersfield Californian in 2005, in the niche product division, we were able to experiment with stuff like that. And the guy that was there kind of overseeing that division says, hey, you know, Apple, you know, he was a big techie guy. He goes, Apple's doing these things with podcasting. If you go to iTunes, they have like a section there where you can do a podcast. And we didn't know what it was, but once he told me what it was and he showed me how to record it and how to upload it and RSS feeds and, you know, blogging and all that stuff, how to get it put on the platforms, which it was only available on one platform, which was iTunes. Yeah. And so once I figured that, I was just like, oh man, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. And so I just kind of developed it as my own little radio show. And because it was associated with Bakotopia.com website, which is a social networking website developed by the Bakersfield California in their niche product division to kind of capitalize on the MySpace new era of social networking. They put me in charge of that, and so we started as kind of like a new product to kind of show, hey, we're breaking new ground over here in Kern County, and this was before the economy crashed. So the Bakersfield Californian had a lot of money, and so they would say, well, what do you need? I was just like, well, I need a good mic, and and we'll see what happens. So I did it, and that's when I was doing Wu-Tang Clan. I was able, because of the reason why I had access to all these famous people was because the Bakersfield Californian was the only newspaper in town, and as long as you have you start making those initial connections and acts are coming into town, publicists are always trying to push artists, but depending on who it was, I would have my regular assignments and all that stuff. So when Bakotopia had dissolved, and all the website and that entire archive from about 2005 to 2006 was wiped off, I had gotten moved into the main newsroom at the Bakersfield Californian. The Bakotunes podcast, original one, was completely wiped off the web, everything like that. It was dormant. I said, podcasting's dead. I'm moving on. I'm in the big newsroom now. I'm part of the daily paper, and I'm moving on. So what I used to do was, because I would like to talk to some of these artists and not just be typing away as I'm talking to them, I'd record our conversations. Hey, can I record our conversation? Sure. I said, I just want to make sure that I get everything accurate when I transcribe our interviews. So I would save every single interview that I did, and I had amassed such a huge archive of interviews for a lot of artists that aren't even with us. I mean, like Ronnie Montrose and Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest. I mean, I have just a
Ray Manzarek.
Ray Manzarek and all these people that I had done stories for that had gone, our conversations had gone past the original, 600 word interview that I'd done. So I saved them all. When I started thinking about getting the podcast back, I had saved everything from the old Bakotunes podcast from 2005, 2006. I said, well, I'll get it started, put it back up there. And it was during the pandemic. I wasn't doing anything. I was unemployed. I was at home. And I said, well, I'm just going to bring it back and see if I could do this without having to spend money. And at this time, podcasting was starting to really come back. And there are some people that have been doing podcasting through the entire time, from the dawn of podcasting to the present. And so they had freaking 10 years of podcasting. And I was just kind of I'll just get started, see who pays attention. Next thing you know, I looked at and I go, I have all these other cool interviews. Let me listen to the quality of them. And if it was something that was going to be, that it was timely, or it was evergreen, and I saw it had some sort of value for fellow music geeks, and kind of something to share. And also to get myself back out there, because I wasn't working. I had already left the newspaper. I had kind of dabbled in marketing. I'd worked at the Bakersfield Museum of Art. I had worked for the Kern County Mental Health. I had worked in all these different communications areas. But, entertainment and, talking music and art and geeking out, that's my forte, man. That's where my heart is. So bringing back the Bakotunes podcast, with some of those older interviews that I was able to save and kind of clean up a little bit and upload, when I started seeing that everybody was listening to them, I said, well, I'm just going to start doing it again. And that's kind of what happened.
So cool.
Last year I was able to get, the new devices that make podcasting much easier to do now.
Yeah.
And being able to show publicists that I had interviewed Ray Manzarek, Carlos Santana, Merle Haggard, all those, that makes it a lot easier for me to reach out to people now. They're like, well, if you've interviewed them, I can trust you with my client.
Yeah.
To not embarrass them, because podcasting is the thing that they want to do now. But a lot of these artists don't really know how to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they get stage fright. And is this just going to be audio, or am I going to be on Zoom? No. What do you prefer? What do you prefer? They're like, can we just do it over the phone? Sure, don't worry. I said, listen, I always take care of my subjects. I never put them out there to embarrass them or anything like that. And, there's been times where can you send it to me first before you let me see it and before you broadcast it?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll do that. I'm just doing it for fun,
Yeah.
And here we are. Yeah.
Dude, Ray Manzarek from The Doors is like one of my idols, man. And dude, what was that like interviewing him?
That was really cool, man, because, if you hear the interview, it's pretty uncut. It's a pretty uncut interview. I knew that he had come to town, like, he would travel with this blues guy who was a friend of his. So like that particular interview, there's a second part to it, where we talk about his friendship with this guitar player. But then I have the other interview with the actual guitar player that he toured with. So I interviewed them on different occasions. And Ray Manzarek used to come down, and it was Pat Evans from World Records would do those concerts, which he still does over at his new place. But he would bring Ray Manzarek like once a year. He's kind of one of those creatures of habit. He always brings like every year, you always know Elvin Bishop's going to come down.
Okay. Los
Lobos, he's a blues guy. So he would bring Ray Manzarek. So they said, well, if you want to interview him, here's his number. And I was like, okay. So then I called him and pressed record, and man, like you talk about, thank God that I pressed record and I had that conversation, because I mean, after our conversation, I think he must have passed away like maybe a year later.
Really?
After that, I mean, some of those interviews I should go back, like which I did with Merle, where I went back and I did an introduction as to give the interview some context before we started, because some of these I just kind of started. Hello, this is Ray, and then we start our conversation. But like with the Merle Haggard one, I was hoping that, well, I don't know if anybody's going to even understand, like, why am I interviewing him? What's going on? So maybe I might do that with the Ray Manzarek, is actually go back and add an intro to it so people know why I was interviewing him, and kind of give them a little context before we just go into the thing. But Ray was cool, man. I mean, you heard us. I mean, he's just, we talked about X and stuff, and, I mean.
Unbelievable, man.
Wow. Cherished.
Hey, I got a funny story about Ray Manzarek. I've never met him. I got to see him play once, and it was a crazy thing where I was in Thousand Oaks and I had to go to this wedding with my girlfriend, and we go to the I think it's like the Hyatt in Thousand Oaks or something like that. But they have all these banquet rooms, where you can have all these different things going on at once, and so we're at the reception of this wedding. I don't really know anybody there. My girlfriend knows everybody. I don't really know anybody. And I go, hey, I'm going to go to the restroom. I'll be right back. And so I go out the banquet room and start heading down, and I start hearing some like music, and it kind of sounds like The Doors, man. So I open up the door to this banquet room, and it's all dark in there, and there's a stage, and I just kind of slipped in there and went up towards the stage, and there's a big crowd in there huddled around the stage and everything, and it's basically all the Doors minus Jim Morrison, and Vince Neil is singing. And I was just like, oh my God. And here's my idol, Ray Manzarek on organ, just tearing it up, and they're all playing, and Vince Neil is singing the Doors songs. I'm going,
okay, stop right there. Once you said Vince Neil, I was like, was he going to say his idol is Vince Neil?
No.
Okay, now what condition was Vince Neil? Because there was the Vince Neil event, which I saw Motley Crue Shout at the Devil tour, man. Motley Crue, I love Motley Crue. I'm a fan.
So that
was that crazy time. But what condition was he when you saw him? Because now he's not the same Vince Neil.
No, this was like, I'm going to say 30 years ago, maybe, something like that. So he was in decent condition,
Yeah. You can still remember.
Yeah.
You can still remember the words.
Yeah. He was singing away, man. But I snuck back out, got my girlfriend and a couple of her friends, and I go, God, let's go over here. And we went back in there, and kind of crashed that wedding reception or what was going on over there. It was pretty cool. It was somebody was getting married. It was a blast, man. I got to be like right next to him. like literally, by the organ at the B3. And I was like, whoa, I can't believe this is, so that was cool.
Yeah, man. Well, being that close is even better than, interviewing him over the phone, man. So you were up on me on there, man. And to be right there with Vince Neil. He's still kind of a rock god at the time.
Yeah, man. It was awesome, man. It was really cool. So let's go back to music real quick.
Sure.
So I want to find out how you got into the ska reggae scene, being from McFarland.
Oh yeah. Well, it really does have everything to do with the 80s,
Yeah.
I loved, I grew up listening to a lot of R&B stuff because, I'm the youngest of 7. So I grew up listening to so many different types of music through because I have 5 sisters and one brother. So all the jazz stuff from like my dad loved big band and everything like that. And so I kind of like, by the time it got to me where I was really conscious of what I was, of music in my life, my sisters were watching Soul Train, they were watching American Bandstand. And so 80s, I mean, that's all it was for me. And this was, we didn't have cable for a long time. So it was like, you listen to whatever was on the radio, and that's when those formats were so mixed. But it's not like this was pre-cutting edge radio, man. So we're listening to you grow up listening to a bunch of crap until like somebody decides, I'm going to shake up the format and, we're going to, it's a new era, man. It's the 80s. And so once I was playing the sax, elementary school, junior high, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Once I discovered the punk rock stuff, I loved that because it was just like, it was something different. And it's like, you could be whatever you want. And, I like the girls that were those edgy kind of like troublemaker chicks. And so you had punker chicks. And, we didn't have any of that out there. It was just nothing but farm kids.
I mean, how was it like? I mean, how did you get the introduction to that? Like, did you hear a song and you're like, oh, and then you kind of delved into exploring more of the punk or whatever you were kind of going that way? What was the first song or record that you heard that you were like, oh my God, what is this?
Oh man. Well, the earliest ones that I remember from that was Rock Lobster, B-52s,
absolutely,
man.
yeah.
Because that was one of the first songs that actually crossed over into mainstream radio. So I remember Rock Lobster would play on KKXX, or KKXX was like the main rock station in Bakersfield at the time. And so my sisters were hip, they were a little bit older than I was, but they were in high school. And so for them, they were at that perfect age in high school. So Rock Lobster, and they would play the full version of it, man. So you got the full thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was Talking Heads, Once in a Lifetime.
Oh yeah.
So there was those 2 tunes that you heard. And then when I got into high school, and you're like, well, I can't form a band in this town. Nobody wants to do anything. I'm playing the sax. I would play along to like R&B records, Tower of Power and everything like that. But then once I discovered Madness, I mean, once I saw One Step Beyond, I was like, oh man, okay, this is the next step. You can't have a saxophone in punk, but you can have a saxophone in ska. And I want to know what all this stuff is all about. And at that time, by the time I had access to be able to go like buy those records, a lot of those records were they were already, like 79, 80. The specials came out in 79. So by the time I was really able to gravitate towards in like 82, 83, some of those bands are already broken up, Yeah. But I was like, I love this stuff. And then Fishbone, Oingo Boingo, man. I mean,
oh my God, yeah.
That was it. That was the end all be all. I got to see him in Bakersfield in 83. Good for Your Soul right here at the Fox Theater. And then I just became like obsessed with Oingo Boingo. So at that time they only had 3 albums, and I was just listening to them all the freaking time. But you had to save up all my lunch money to go buy a record, and it had to wait till I came to Bakersfield. It was just like, well, we can't go to Bakersfield. We can't go for 2 weeks. But I'm like, how am I ever going to get this music? There's no record store around here. So I had to wait. Like, it was always like the last one to get everything. But once we got cable, MTV came out, and we would get like the LA stations that would have like video shows like MV3. It'd be Richard Blade was barely coming on the scene. And then they would have like the English Beat,
Yeah.
Oingo Boingo, Wall of Voodoo, all that IRS record stuff.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was just like a complete 80s kid. So it wasn't just limited to ska. It was like all over the place. But it was a good time to be a horn player in the 80s because there would always be like at least one horn saxophone, and Los Lobos had a sax player. They still do. And you finally got to see Chicanos playing cool hip music. And Boingo and Specials and Scatolites and all that stuff came later, but definitely 100% 80s, man. It was just kind of part of that flow of and that flood of music that I discovered, and I got to have it all.
Did you
and
see?
It suited me.
Did you see Oingo Boingo when they came to Bakersfield?
This last time?
No, just like when you were younger. When you were a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
I saw them. I saw them. Oh, I saw them a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I saw them. Good for Your Soul tour. My sisters took me. It was at the Fox Theater downtown. This is when the Fox Theater was in complete disrepair. I mean, it was falling apart, man. But the shows that they had at that time, I mean, Wall of Voodoo, Missing Persons, everybody that was hip and happening at the time could play at the Fox. It wasn't like now. I mean, at that time, it was just like it was a venue that was falling apart. There was no foundation to save it, no historical society. It was just like I would go there to see punk shows, and I would be like, man, they're going to completely destroy this place. It's just a freaking mess. Now it's all restored, but I got to see him live there. I got to see him many times in LA.
Uh-huh.
I was at their very final show on Halloween night, 1995, Universal Amphitheater, and I guess,
and
Fishbone.
Oh yeah. Couple of things I wanted to say there was the Fox Theater in Bakersfield is like the spitting image of the Ventura Theater. It's like the same contractor must have built that way back when they did that, because they're the exact same theater. Except
for the, I love the Ventura Theater. Last time I was there was the Specials.
Oh yeah?
When the Specials did the reunion, when they had
Special
everybody.
Beat? Oh, was it?
No. It was the Specials. It was the Specials. Terry Hall. The only one that wasn't in the group was Jerry Dammers, and it was before Neville Staple left. And what year was it? It had to have been 2000, because my wife and I were dating at the time, so it had to have been like 2012 or 2013. But the Specials had done a full reunion. They'd played Coachella, and then they came back. And they were still doing like just the classics. They were like, we're not doing any new songs. And so it was just like, we'd played with the Specials in Fresno way back in the day, like 97.
Uh-huh.
And it was like a guy who sounded like Terry Hall. You had some of the original members, but it was like the drummer was the drummer from the Selector.
Oh, okay.
And it was kind of like a hodgepodge. And if you were into ska, well, you know how it was back then. It was just like, it didn't go through. This was before the big boom of like Boss Tones, No Doubt, and all that stuff kind of blew up.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of went away. But it was right at that really cool time when it was just like the hip kids knew where to go to the ska shows, and the Specials would reunite. Did see Special Beat in Santa Barbara with Mary's Danish.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Good memory, man.
Yeah, I got a poster from that, man.
When you said Fresno, I automatically thought of Let's Go Bowling.
Oh yeah, man.
Right?
Another big influence, man.
Yeah.
Underrated.
We played a show with them a couple of years ago in Morro Bay, man, at this club over there, and they were freaking great as usual.
Yeah.
They rocked it, man.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I would definitely go, and this was pre-formation of Mento, like I would say 89. I used to go to the Reseda Country Club.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how I'd find out about these shows. Reseda Country Club to see Crucial DBC, No Doubt, Hepcats, one of Hepcats. I saw like their debut show. Let's Go Bowling, New York Citizens, the Toasters, like all that era, late 80s into the 90s before the formation of Mento Buru. I absorbed it all, you know.
Yeah.
I would just drive down there, and like if I was dating somebody, it was like, hey, let's go to this show. And like I didn't have a car. And so she's like, what are we gonna go see? And like we'd go. And so they'd take me because we were dating. They probably had no interest. But I was like, and then it was see Skank and Pickle, and you know, all those crazy bands. Upbeat.
Yeah.
Upbeat from Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So and sounds like you and I really grew up with a lot of the same bands, loved a lot of the same bands, you know. Dude, I saw this the first time I got introduced to Steel Pulse was at the Ventura County Fair. Were you at that show?
Oh no, but
it was like 83 or something, and that he walked out onto we had been listening to their album, and he David Hines walks out onto the stage, you know, with his dreads straight up. And we were just all these kids, you know, just going, oh my gosh. And they just tore it up. It was so cool.
Oh yeah. I got to interview him once.
I know. I heard that, man. It's cool.
Yeah. He was super cool, man. I remember we had to do the Zoom. And since he was in England, you know, we had to line up our times. It was we did.
Oh my God.
Through, what is that? Skype.
Yeah.
We had to do it through Skype. And I still have that interview. I have to listen to it and see if I can clean it up, because some of the archive stuff, you know, if I was recording with just like a wire from the phone into like an adapter, and it didn't always work out, the quality wasn't up to par. I'm like, I'm not going to put this out because that buzzing would start to get annoying. You know? But man, if only people could hear us talking about this stuff, you know.
It's awesome, man. So your band, Mento Buru, is probably the most popular local band in Bakersfield, and has been for many years. It's unbelievable how many shows you guys do. I mean, you guys play probably every weekend, do you think?
Not so much, you know. Post pandemic, we're starting to get back into it, but you know, we figured out the state of the scene as far as where places are, where, you know, venues that offer live music, you know, a lot of them during the pandemic, they just kind of came out of it where they're like, you know, I think we're just gonna not have music anymore. We're just gonna leave the restaurant or the venue the way we had to modify it to keep the business open.
Yeah.
And they're just like, we're just going to take live music out, or they're just going to maybe have karaoke or an acoustic singer, you know, yawn, you know, somebody that's going to come in, you know, with their acoustic guitar. And I was like, man, you know, if I have to see some of these places that should be having bands, or like we poured so many years into some of these venues in town, and then and to made them a lot of money, And so they would always be able to rely. I mean, we played some clubs where we've helped them pay their bills.
For sure.
They booked us there because it's like, we need to make some money. And then now it's just like, no, we're just going to have, a solo guy, whatever, duo playing acoustic because it's cheap, and they'll play for tips. And I always want to be like, John Belushi in Animal House and just go down there and get the guitar and just smash it against the wall. I don't want to hear you play Tennessee Whiskey or none of that garbage. I just don't want to hear it. It's still a good song, but I just don't want to hear it. You know, I'm a little bitter. I'm like, we want to play too, man. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's starting to turn around a little bit, but I think right now, so far now, we're just it's kind of becoming more of like a seasonal thing. So you do your holidays. We did St. Patrick's Day. April, we kind of go back into the lab. We look at the songs. We say, you know, let's spruce up the set list a little bit. If we play some clubs, or we're going to write. I mean, we have a lot of stuff that we didn't even get to finish during the pandemic. And then by the time the beginning of May comes out, and you got like Cinco de Mayo and all those things that we get asked to do, kind of opens up the season. But if we weren't getting booked for a lot of private functions and community functions, there isn't a whole lot of opportunities around here. Unless you just want to go and do, the solo thing at the wine bar or some stuff like that, and that's just not us.
So are you guys writing music still, or?
Yeah. Okay. So when Joe Vasquez, our trombone player, rest in peace, right before he passed away, he and I had started working on some music together. And Joe and I, going all the way back to the original Mento days, was that the way we used to write stuff was Joe was the music theory guy, the transcription guy.
Yeah.
So I used to play like, hey, I want to do this on this song. Okay, I wrote this song. So what I would do is I would have the melody in my head, sing the lyrics to him. So then he would write down, this is the key you're singing this in. This is the key you're singing this in. Boom, boom, boom. And then I would play the horn lines I would want to play. And then he would figure it out. He would figure out the harmonies. And that's the way we worked together.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I was the primary lyricist, primary songwriter, but it was a collaboration between Joe and I when it came down to like teaching the band what to do. Like the bass has got you, this is what you're going to have to do here, and doing all the styles and all that stuff. But before he passed away, we were working on some stuff, but they were just instrumentals at that time. And when Joe passed away, I still had the emails of the MIDI files that he had recorded, and he had even done a song of his own, but it was just like maybe 8 bars of a tune. And the Latin tune that we had written, I just kind of sat down and, to me, it's like at the time when I was doing a lot of writing, I was just in a different point in your life, man,
Yeah, absolutely.
My 20s and early, late 20s, and like, I'm going to write a song about Punani, and we're just, I would write those songs drinking, a 12-pack of beer, we'd fuck around, we do all this stuff, and writing about girls and bad relationships, which, relationships are always the best inspiration. So we'd be able to do this and do that and blah, blah, blah. And then we started finding out that one of our strengths was to reinterpret tunes as well. So we found out this balance of how we're going to be able to make Mento what it was. Like if we can't produce original music as fast as we'd like, well, we're going to have some fun with these tunes, and and we'll just reinterpret them in different stuff. We'll give them the Mento touch.
Yeah.
So the last 2 original tunes, we've been playing them live. We went into the studio to record them. Then the pandemic happened, and all of our the band fund had depleted because everything it cost to keep websites going, equipment, distribution, the streaming, all that stuff, little by little, it just started going down the tubes. Gigs were getting canceled. When we would rely on like a wedding gig to pay for like 2 sessions in the studio. So like I would budget it out. So that was all gone. And I'm kind of getting a bug again to write, but I'm the type of person that I'm only going to write something and release it put it out if we're going to use it. I've never been that type to be like, I'm going to sit down and write 50 songs.
Yeah.
And if we don't use them, then we don't use them. You know what?
Yeah.
I don't like to waste anything. That's just me.
Yes. So write it and then perform it, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, write and perform it. The 2 new originals, which are great. I mean, I'm really proud of the first Latin one that I did, first Spanish song that lyrics I did. It's called Mátame, Kill Me. It's kind of like a rock. It's almost like a rock en español style, like a Los Fabulosos Cadillacs. So it's a little Latin, but it's got the reggae, it's got the ska in it, and a little bit of the punk edge. And then the other tune, On My Own, is like a lovers rock reggae. Nice. And I was able to really feel proud of like, man, I got some really good lyrics still left in me, even at this age. I feel like what I can write about is going to be, people are going to be able to gravitate towards it now. And I'm not writing about Punani or anything like that, but it's still hip enough, even though we still play that song because everybody wants to hear it, especially a lot of girls. And and I'm like, yeah, I'm only going to put this out if it's going to be something that's going to be hip and If I dig it, I give it that feel. If I feel confident with putting it out there. And it is fun to see people's response. It's like, oh, Mento's got some new original stuff. Great, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, it was like we spent many, many years building our families, being a working band, but that part of being in a band was just, it was helping us pay bills. So the original concept of Mento Buru was like, hey, we're gonna go play parties, and you know, and we'll just play for beer, and we're gonna rehearse, and we're gonna record some demos, and it's gonna be all fun, and we'll go to the coast and blow all our money, come back empty-handed, but we had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Those times had already passed. So to keep, you know, these guys, and they've got like, you know, 3-4 kids, and they got child support, and they got all this. It's like it went from the music first to business first. But I knew as a band leader, I knew that I would make it happen. I would make it happen again, that we would get back to recording and releasing music. And that definitely happened during the pandemic, because I learned about grants, applying for music grants.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, yeah, man. Music grants.
Your sound, is it, you know, it's got the Latin, cumbia, ska, reggae sound. I'm you know, putting that together in my own mind. It's almost like it's its own original sound. Would you say that's true? Is it's kind of like your sound comes from like your environment, you know, like the Bakersfield area, would you say is kind of like where your sound comes from?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much if you were to go back to when we started to morph more into from a straight ahead reggae band, and then we started incorporating ska. You know, when the Latin thing happened, there wasn't a whole lot of bands doing it. I mean, and like at this time, ska, if you were going to be pretty much predominantly a ska band, the scope of gigs and everything that you were going to do was going to be very limited. Right. And so we kind of had to make a decision of what we were going to do, because then we're going to do like a full ska show, and it's just like, you know, the ska kids had kind of already moved on. And so then we were like, well, what are we going to do? And, you know, we're kind of looking around, and the more times that we started spending in Los Angeles, we would get these opportunities to play at like these Chicano underground art shows. Okay. And we started to see what all the kids were into and what the DJs were playing, and they're playing like this kind of vintage Latin music. And then you started to see little by little that some of the the ska bands like Yes Ska and all that, and this is pre-Ozo Motley, were starting to kind of add, like, it was more like a cha-cha ska. So it wasn't a straight ahead ska, but it was like a cha-cha, and they had a conga player and they had a timbale player. So when Marcos Reyes, our conga player at the time, he's been with War for, I don't know, about 20 years already. Marcos would play us. We were roommates for a while, and he would say, yeah, check out all this. And it just clicked with me, man. I just really dug like Poncho Sanchez and Tito Puente and all that old Latin rock stuff that we grew up listening to. But we started to see, well, let's kind of little by little add this in there, because we'll be able to bring more out of Marcos as a conga player. And we would add one tune every once in a while, like a Spanish Grease by Willie Bobo, which we ended up recording with Willie Bobo's original bongo player when we were on Moonska. So we would do that. And that was kind of a straight ahead, almost like Oye Como Va tune. And people were starting to dig it. LA at the time, in the hip clubs, like in Santa Monica, West LA, we would get all these really cool gigs, a lot of art house gigs. You know, people didn't even pay attention to the fact that we drove all the way from Bakersfield. They just dug with what we were doing. And so a lot of the bands in LA, we were just lucky, man. We were just lucky that we just clicked with this LA scene. And then we started meeting different people. And when we came back to Bakersfield still hadn't really embraced that. They were still into, because Korn was big at the time. So it was like the Bakersfield music scene was Korn, Adema, metal, punk, all that stuff. Uh-huh. There was maybe over the course of like about 10 years, there was maybe 2 or 3 ska bands that had kind of come up, after us. And they only last for a little while because they're in high school and, they're just having fun and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we were starting to play more Latin music in our shows. And next thing you know, man, we hadn't even played a ska tune in freaking years. We were just playing nothing but Latin and funky stuff. We played like some funky tunes, but for the most part, and they weren't even cumbias. They were just straight ahead like cha-cha-chas. And then we were learning about like salsa music. So we were learning about the clave and playing, and all that. Next thing you know, man, we were still called Mento Buru, but we were playing just nothing but Latin music. And then because of those waves, and you start seeing people's tastes, we said, why don't we try cumbias? Cumbias were easy for people to dance to. It led to us getting more gigs. And then I started singing more Spanish. I started getting more comfortable with singing in Spanish. So I started out really slow because I didn't grow up fluent in Spanish at all. I had it was like a slow progression. So I started kind of like pushing myself to learn a little bit more like this. And then thankfully, all the guys in the band, because we got Mexicans and white guys, they dug the music, man. And, and like you said, it's kind of reflection of this area, of the people that are around us, the people that come to see us. And post ska years for Mento Buru, we saw that, these different ages of Latino community, of the Latino community were coming to see us. So if it was like the OGs, like the abuelitos were coming to see us because they liked some of the tunes that we were playing, I started singing Sabor a Mi, slower songs. And then we have like the young Latinos that were coming out to see us, and they were hip to what we were doing too. Like there was already rock en español, and they were doing, Los Fabulosos Cadillacs, prime example, Maldita Vecindad, Café Tacuba, they were singing alternative music in Spanish. I was like, man, this is what we need to do. We need to do it like this. And I wasn't interested in starting another band. I didn't want to have to go through like reestablishing ourselves, change the name, do this, do that. We're going to say Mento Buru, man, because there's just one Mento Buru. And I said, we can do whatever we want. We don't need to like worry about what anybody says about this, because we would hear this a lot. Well, I remember when you guys were a ska band. And I said, well, that's good, man. But, we do this. We're Mento Buru, man. We're a band for everybody, which we still love playing ska. Yeah. But we have had those nights where we're like, okay, guys, because the guys are all, come on, man, let's do an all ska show. And we'll start out that way. And the people are just waiting for us to just go back to playing cumbias. They're just waiting. They're just waiting for us to go into that. And then we're like, okay, hey, man, it's all good. You came here. You came here to see us, and we appreciate you, and we'll do all that. But there are those occasions where we could just play it all, man. Like we start out fast. We start out playing some funky reggae and some ska, some cumbias, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We throw in an Oingo Boingo tune.
I know. Yeah, you do. I like that when you guys do that. That's cool. Yeah, man. So it's wild. But like you said, short answer, yes. Yeah. What we do now is definitely a reflection of Kern County in Bakersfield. So who's in the band?
We're soaking it up.
Who's in the band currently?
Okay, we got me, Matt Munoz, vocals and sax. I'll do it in order of veteran status. So you got me, and then let's see, we got Cesario Barraza is on drums.
Oh yeah.
Caleb Moore is on bass, and you have Sal Galindo on guitar. You got Paul Perez on sax. You got Jay Smith on piano and keyboards. Brent Williams on trumpet, and Justin Kirk on trombone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you have 4 horns? Three horns?
We normally...
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, Justin... So this is the thing with Justin. Justin just moved to Santa Paula last year. His wife was an attorney, so Justin is like a session player, big-time touring guy from L.A., He toured with Al McKay and Earth, Wind & Fire, the guitar player from Earth, Wind & Fire for years.
Wow.
Traveled around the world with him. traveled with Booker T and the MGs.
Wow.
Done all this stuff. He did stuff with Jason Mraz, big time session player. He's a USC graduate. So he was here in Bakersfield with his wife who was working for the county, and he used to come see us, but he never introduced himself to us. And this is when Joe was still alive. So when Joe passed away, we were just like, well, let's see, what are we going to do? It's not like the pool of musicians for bands to pick through here in Bakersfield is very limited, man. I mean, in all honesty, as somebody who knows the scene as well as I do and everything, it's just like,
that's for sure.
to have the level of musicianship to kind of keep up with what we do and be able to do it, it's just like, oh man, it's just not happening. So when Justin found out that Joe had passed away, he felt really bad, and we just started talking and everything like that. And I said, hey man, you think about coming to jam with us? He's like, sure, man. So he ended up joining the band. So we had for like a good 3 years, he was playing with us all the time. His wife was working over here. Paul was playing the sax. And so we had like that trombone, sax sound. Loved it. I didn't have to play I didn't play as much horn anymore. I was more focused on singing and playing timbales and
performing,
doing everything else. So Justin says, hey man, well, my wife's she got another job in LA. And so we're moving to Santa Paula. Okay. So when he ended up going, there's another trumpet player here in town, Brent Williams, who's a teacher at St. John's Lutheran. He's a music teacher. He came in and he's been with us. So we'll either have the three horns together when we can, because I like to retain everybody. I was like, man, we're like a family. If you're going to be in this band, I don't want you to be here for like a couple of years. I want you to be here as long as you can be in the band.
Nice.
So we have Paul on sax, Brent on trumpet, Justin on trombone. I just talked to him yesterday because we're talking about the shows coming up, because he's been pulled out on tour every once in a while. And Korn had just did this big recording in a cathedral in LA with like a symphony. And he was one of the two trombonists for the recording. It's a new recording that Korn did. I mean, it's out now. And he goes, hey man, do you think I could borrow Joe's bass trombone for the thing? And I was like, yeah, because after Joe passed away, Justin had taken Joe's trombone to get it refurbished, and I was just gonna keep it, memory of my brother. So it's weird how this happened. So Justin goes, I'm doing this thing with Korn, but I need a bass trombone. Can I use Joe's? He drove over here to get it from Bakersfield. He took it, did the session. And the funny thing about it is that Joe went to school with guys from Korn over at East High. So I had talked to Jonathan Davis's sister, and I said, hey, that's our trombone player up there. I'm good friends with him. And he's playing Joe's trombone. So Joe in spirit is on this
that's
big
cool.
freaking Korn recording. So yeah, man, life is strange, man. You just, you never know.
It goes round and round.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place to play in Bakersfield?
Let's see. Big professional place. I love the Crystal Palace, man.
Yeah. I know you guys play there like every once in a while, don't you?
Yeah. We did. We get to do. We do Fat Tuesday, so we do our big Mardi Gras show there, and then we do Cinco de Mayo.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So we started those traditions there, and it's good to be back because the pandemic. I mean, it closed the whole venue down, and they were unsure if they were going to even be able to reopen it to operate. And but thank God they're back. We had a great Fat Tuesday.
What is that about that place that you like?
Well, it's the whole setup for the stage and the sound, and it's a proper stage.
Right.
They have an engineer.
Yeah.
You feel like a pro, man.
Yeah.
You got video screens, you got lights, you got functioning monitors. You could just show up to play. Like, I'm not lugging all that equipment.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, and the more that we play there, thanks to the wonders of technology, all those guys have to do is they have us on memory, and they just set us up where we need to be, and they just press a button, boop, and then cool? Everything goes right where it's supposed to be.
The first time I walked into that place, I was like, wow, whoever designed this place, man, who wanted a bitchin' ass club, you know. And you're right, that stage is perfect. Just it's not too big. Every seat in the house is killer. It sounds amazing. It's a cool place to just go and have dinner and watch music. Oh my God.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right,
man. I've seen some amazing shows there, and you know, I'm not like a big country fan. When it comes to country music, excuse me, when it comes to country music, it has to be something that it comes from the roots of country, man. You know, I'm not really into the new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when I interviewed Pam Tillis for my podcast, is because during those 90s, those big 90s country, you had like, it was such a great time for women in country music. So when I was working at a music store, and it was that era of Garth Brooks and Tim McGraw and like all these really phenomenal, huge country superstars, you know, George Strait was still kicking ass and all that stuff. And all the legends were still alive. You know, you still had Buck. Merle Haggard was on Epitaph, man. And Johnny Cash was on Deaf American. So it's just like country music, that whole era, if you didn't dig the newer artists that were coming out, you could always look to the classic stuff. And then, you know, being able to go to play, the first time we played at the Crystal Palace, we played after Buck Owens, and we never got to meet him, but we were the first like non-country band to be able to play there. And it was actually as
cool.
part of a fundraiser for pre-Village Fest. Like the guy who founded Village Fest, we were always the band that helped him with all those fundraisers, because he knew like, I can rely on these guys, people know him. Yeah. He was starting everything. And so he goes, I'm going to have you guys, they said you guys can play after Buck Owens, you know, after he's done at 9, you guys will go on, you guys play till 11. I was like, oh, hey, yeah. So I waited after Buck was done. And as soon as he's done, he just walks off the stage. Good night, takes off. Because the broadcast on the AM station, and when they had the TV station, which was KDOB, Dorothy Owens Broadcasting, you used to be able to watch his shows on TV. Yeah. And so it was like, he used to take full advantage of all the things. So, you know, but God bless him, man. It was amazing. I got to see him like 3 or 4 times there, once on my parents' anniversary. But then after that, it was just like going to see Junior Brown, Big Sandy, BR549, Leon Russell, man, the Mavericks. I got to introduce X.
No way.
The interview that I had with John Doe on the podcast, that was right before their first show for the anniversary of the Los Angeles album, when they did that.
Wow.
And I remember that's when John Doe was living in Oildale. He had a home there.
Oh, he did.
And so he lived there for a while. And people, because he lived in Fraser Park for many years when he raised his family. I had a friend who she said, oh yeah, we knew John because John used to coach his daughter's little league team and soccer, and he was just regular guy. And then he was living in Bakersfield for a while. Trout's was still open. He would show up to venues every once in a while, and if you really knew who John Doe was, then you would go up to him. But it was just like that time period where he just got kind of lost, and he just became like another. I mean, he was still in movies and he was doing little bit parts here, but you know, there was no X reunion. But at this time, X was reuniting. There was an anniversary of Los Angeles, so what they would do at the Crystal Palace, they played the Unheard Music documentary on the big screens before the show, and they said Jerry Hufford, who was booking the Crystal Palace, he goes, why don't you introduce him? And so I was like, no freaking way, man. This is fucking amazing. So I went over there, and John's like, oh, hey, Matt, hey, Exene, this is Matt Munoz. He's the one who interviewed us for the story. So I went up there, and then I was just like, I remember I was like, how's it going, Bakersfield? Everybody was just like on fire, man. Everybody was just waiting. I can't believe this is actually fucking happening. And then I did it in Spanish. Desde Los Angeles, please welcome X. You know, I just fucking lost it, man. And then they just launched into a fucking raging set.
Awesome. So
yeah,
cool.
Man.
So cool. Oh, hey, after all these years of playing, you know, all these shows and everything, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you guys? Has anything like just crazy happened to you while you guys are performing?
While we're performing, oh man. Let's see.
It's a good one. Huh?
Well, we've had some of those times where it's just like there's been some kind of things that have gone beyond our control that have happened on stage. Everything from like, you go through those periods in your life where you have like you're dating somebody that has the jealous boyfriend who shows the ex-boyfriend that shows up and starts shit, or the ex-girlfriend who just won't stay away and all this stuff and blah blah. It's just those irresponsible years, and us drinking way too much, us having to babysit a band member, and it just goes on and on and on. But we've had so many near-death experiences driving back to Bakersfield because we would party so hard and have such a good time. And, we'd do fiesta days, man. We had a guy that would book us there. So we were like, for 3 years, we would be like, we were a headlining band in De La Guerra Plaza for 2 years, like us all the way from Bakersfield, man. And we'd play at Toes. We'd play at Soho. So we go Toes, Soho, and then De La Guerra Plaza on Saturday. And then on the way back, we'd stop at Bombay.
Awesome. Good little,
so
little
we'd
shot.
be there all week. And we'd stay at in Goleta. This is a weird connection. So in Goleta, there was a band that we got teamed up with at Toast Tavern once called Rice and Beans.
Of course, yeah.
And you remember Rice and Beans?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. So we became friends with them, and they're like, hey, man, well, you guys can crash our pad, man. So we went over there.
That's cool.
The place is a freaking flop house, but it's like a 2-story house. They had like 5 people living in there. And so we were just sleep on the floor. They had a boa constrictor that would just like get out of its... It was weird, man. And we became really friends with these guys. And yeah, man. Remember Snot? Remember the band Snot?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, dude. They would come to see us when we play at Toast Tavern. We kind of became friends with like such a weird hodgepodge of bands that were just like, it didn't even matter. It wasn't so much about the type of music. They were just like, you guys are cool. I like you guys. And we would just like go over there all the freaking time. We go fiesta. And so, so Rice and Beans. So we became friends with Rice and Beans. We played like one of the guys' weddings, everything like that. Fast forward, Dave, the singer from Rice and Beans, is actually the guitar player for the Untouchables now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So Dave, Rice and Beans Dave, singer, he used to have like those corn dreads.
Yeah.
Those spiky dreads. He worked for Guitar Center, like corporate Guitar Center for many, many years. Him and the other guy from Rice and Beans. And Dave has always been like a real big techie guy. It was funny, man. I was at Coachella and I was watching Outkast, and of all the people who ran up to me and gave me a big old hug, it was fucking Dave from Rice and Beans. I was like, dude, how did you even fucking recognize me? I was like, dude, I could see you from right across the way. And then all of a sudden he's the guitar player for the Untouchables, man. I'm like, how does this shit even happen, bro? Like,
what a trip.
So freaking weird. He's been with him for like I don't know, 8 years now.
One trip, man.
Bizarro, bro. Yeah, but say between all the band drama, relationship dramas that have kind of like people just waiting for us to have to go to kind of like start shit with us, and the near-death experiences, I mean, it's just been a combination. I couldn't whittle it down to one. I could not whittle it down to one. But thank God, none of us ever got arrested. But yeah, we've had a lot of near-death experiences, man. A lot of them.
It's crazy, huh? The band life, man. That's such a great life. Oh my God, the people that you meet.
Yeah, it is.
Just playing for all these different shows. What do you're obviously a veteran performer and stuff, but I always ask performers this too, is that do you still get like butterflies and get a little nerves going before you go up on stage?
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah,
I do, but I definitely at this point, I'm just like, I got like, to me, I got the best guys behind me, man.
Exactly.
And it's just like, we're going into battle. And I know it sounds corny, but man, I'm just ready to go, bro. Like, give me that mic. Give me that mic, and I'm going to show them what's up. You know, I've been doing this for a while. The only nerves I need to have is just, it's like a personal challenge. But like, as far as like, if people are going to dig it or not, I'm like, they'll dig it. If they don't dig it that much, that's okay too. But, you know, we're going to go out there and we're going to kick ass, and somebody's going to dig it. You know, we're going to make an impression on somebody. If it's not it's the whole place. It's going to be, you know, 5 or 6 cute chicks are going to bring their cute chick friends the next time. And then, you know, hey, I always say, if you lose the chicks at your show, man, you might as well forget about it, bro. Yeah. Like, the chicks keep coming to your show. That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
Matt, you know, it's crazy. We did Lion Eyes did a reunion show like a while back, you know, and these people came up, and I'm sure this has happened to you as well. They came up and they go, "Hey, Guy, you know, we've been listening to your album for years, and we met at your show, and these are our kids, and we brought them to the show to hear that they knew all the songs and stuff, you know." And I'm like, oh my God, isn't that so cool? I'm sure that's happened to you. How many people have met at your guys' shows and hooked up, right? And gotten married and had
lots
kids.
Lots of first dates.
Yeah.
Lots of first dates. We played a lot of weddings where, you know, when they do those videos, like, and they show the family and they say, well, you know, we wanted to go, you know, he wanted to take me out on a date. And he says, well, hey, there's this band playing. And I was just like, so the way he says it, he goes, I knew that if she wasn't into live music, she was going to be into live music now, because I knew that this band was going to deliver. I was like, yeah. And everybody was like, yeah. I was like, that's a good sign. That's a good sign, Dad. Like, you know, he was confident enough that this band is going to help get me laid.
Dude, think about how many smiles that you've brought to people, you know, over the years, and people have hooked up because of your music. And, you know, isn't that crazy to think about? I mean, it's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool.
Oh, it is, man. That's the payoff, man, because you know, you get the money will disappears, but it's those memories that you get. And, you know, of people that come like up way along, you know, years later. And it's one of those things where it's like, no matter who comes up to you, always be polite to them.
Yes.
If they need some help. There was one guy that he told me, he goes, hey, I wanted to go see the Skylights, but I wasn't 21. And you just said, here, take my horn. Take my horn. I got to see him. Oh, no, and he was only 16.
Oh, sick.
He was only 16 years old, man. And ever since I was like, there you go, man. And he has a band now. And we've been really, really good friends all these years. Band Valorio here in town. He started on a ska band when he was a kid. The name of his ska band was Rigby Reardon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, man, it's good to have all those, man. Yeah, that's the payoff, bro.
It is.
That's what you take with you forever, man.
Well, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, brother.
Yeah, same here, man.
Where can people listen to your podcast and find Mento Buru?
So if you go to mentoburu.com, mentoburu.com, it'll take you to a link tree, and you know, it's got everything. It's got our the links to the Spotify. We're on all the platforms. Everything that we've released, that we've recorded, is officially out now. It's out there as much as can be. Any of like the 7 inches or the steady beat stuff that people ask us, hey, you know, you have the old 7 inches. You could probably find them on Discogs and stuff like that, because you know, people like to collect those things. But if you go to mentoburu.com, and the same thing with Bakotunes, Instagram and Twitter. I kind of whittled it. I was like, I can't keep up with all these social, like having multiple things. I try to cross pollinate them all, so that if you just go to one. So if you go to, pretty much I have the same handle for all my personal ones. It's Matto Munoz. So if you go to facebook.com/Matto Munoz, MattoMunoz, or Twitter, Instagram. Just look up Bakotunes podcast, Bakotunes, and it won't get confused with any other Bakotunes podcast, because I don't think there's anybody else with a Bakotunes handle. But Instagram, we're on everything. Every single platform you can think of, and reach out to me if there's something you want to pitch. People want to pitch to me. I mean, I'll have you on my podcast.
Oh, that'd be awesome, man. That'd be awesome.
Because I'll know all the, remember the things all I remember from that time? I could pick your brain, because I used to, as just a visitor to Ventura and all those things and all the things that I was aware of. I've always been curious about the history of those areas, and I know you'd be able to ride my mind. All those Warped Tours in Ventura were the best times ever, man.
Oh yeah,
I went to all those Ventura Warped Tours.
Did you?
You know.
Oh, and the Grateful Dead came through there all the time. Oh my God, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, man.
Such a cool town to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I think I'm feeling a ska festival coming together here, man.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Let's do it so we can play some ska again.
Yeah, it'd be fun, man. Well,
do it again.
Absolutely. Hey, it's been an honor to have you on my podcast, man, and I really appreciate you being on. And the best of luck to you. I'm a fan, and I'll be coming to any of your shows you have that I can get to, and we'll talk soon again.
Yeah, bro. We're gonna bring you back over here. I know we haven't had a chance to reconnect since like the Village Fest, which was some years ago, but. You guys are doing your thing. So like I always tell everybody, listen, if we can't connect, the main thing is that we're all staying busy doing our thing.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
everybody just do your thing. Just because we haven't seen each other and we haven't been on the same bills does not mean that we're not out there supporting each other. It's like, we're just trying to stay in the game, man.
Right. Exactly, man. Yeah.
So keep doing your thing too, man. Thank you for having me.
You bet, buddy. Thanks, bud.
You got it.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
It's a Guy Jeans podcast.